I'm doing my presentation over the Epstein-Barr virus. Fun fact, and the reason why I chose this virus for my project is because I have mononucleosis, which is an illness caused by the Epstein-Barr virus. What is the Epstein-Barr virus? The Epstein-Barr virus is a double-stranded DNA virus that multiplies white blood cell counts, specifically the lymphocyte B cell. The Epstein-Barr virus belongs to the genus Lymphocytovirus from the family Herpesviridae. So it is a type of herpes virus. The virus is enclosed by a spiked envelope, which protects the double-stranded DNA, which is pictured here. What type of way does the virus spread? The Epstein-Barr virus is spread via bodily fluids containing saliva, blood, and even semen. However, it is most commonly spread through saliva. So yes, if you have been infected with mono or the Epstein-Barr virus and you are being intimate with your partner, you can spread it via semen. The infected fluids, once in contact with another person, invade their white blood cells, which can occur from kissing, sharing food or drink, or anything that's touched the person's mouth. The virus can cause fever, fatigue, inflamed throat, enlarged spleen, and swollen lymph nodes in the back of one's throat. So going into this later, this is what prolongs the diagnosis of this virus, because a doctor, when a patient goes in with these symptoms, will test them for flu or for strep throat, and both will come back negative, which actually happened to me. So in this picture, it's just showing the Epstein-Barr virus and how it affects the spleen and makes it grow. It shows the lymph nodes in the back of the throat enlarging. So the Epstein-Barr virus is where bodily fluids become infected with the bad double-stranded DNA, which in turn presents symptoms that appear like other common illnesses such as flu or strep throat. Most of the time, prognosis of those who have short acute symptoms is strong. Those who have chronic Epstein-Barr virus have shown a weaker prognosis, including a high mortality rate due to diagnosis being prolonged. Populations of Epstein-Barr virus can affect. As stated earlier, the Epstein-Barr virus is the most spread virus in the world, with 90% of people becoming infected with it or showing symptoms for this virus. The virus can affect any person regardless of their race, gender, and socioeconomic class. So this just shows a range of age that most children are infected with it. And as you can see, as they get older, you're more susceptible to catching the virus. With 90% of the human population having the virus, the human race and their bodily fluid is the primary way this virus is spread. While no human can obtain this virus through pets or animals, humans can give the Epstein-Barr virus to their pets. And this is because humans have the antibodies needed to recover from the virus, whereas dogs or other animals do not and have been known to become infected with the virus. So if you're sick with this virus, stay away from your furry friends. Treatment for this virus. There's no known cure treatment for the Epstein-Barr virus. Since the Epstein-Barr virus is hard to diagnose, it is hard to act fast. Therefore, discovering one has the virus takes time and tests. Since there are no available treatments for the Epstein-Barr virus, a person can only rely on some home remedies to heal their illness. Some of these remedies include drinking plenty of liquids to keep hydrated, getting plenty of rest, and taking over-the-counter medicines for fever and pain. Along with getting plenty of rest, it's good to get this rest because, as I said earlier, you can become fatigued and lack energy, so you need to sleep and rest to gain it back. Symptoms of the Epstein-Barr virus. Some virus symptoms include fatigue, fever, inflamed throat, swollen lymph nodes in the neck, enlarged spleen, swollen liver, and a rash. The symptoms that are present in the Epstein-Barr virus can lead to incorrect diagnosis because they share similar areas of concern. So for example, when I went to the doctor with my symptoms of a sore throat, fever, and fatigue, they assumed I had flu or strep, and when they tested me, the results came back negative. So then they also assumed that I could have also had meningitis, which is deadly. So diagnosis of the Epstein-Barr virus. As stated earlier, the virus is very challenging to diagnose, primarily because the patient's symptoms appear to be similar to flu or strep. The Epstein-Barr virus can be definitively diagnosed through a blood test that checks for antibodies present. Pharmacist treatment. There is no medicine or cure that can be given to a patient with the Epstein-Barr virus. So all that can really be done is giving time and rest to the patient. It's been known that some physicians and doctors have used corticosteroids to treat the swelling in the patient's throat and lymph nodes. All one infected with this virus can really do is rest and stay as hydrated as possible. Okay, finally, prevention plan. There's no vaccine present to prevent this virus. In order to prevent catching the illness, a person can only help and protect themselves from this virus by avoiding contact with people who have the virus. And ways to do this are by not kissing, sharing objects or substances that come into contact with another person's mouth, and one can stay clear of obtaining the sickness by doing these things. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
So is the disease more common in the U.S. or is it around the world, in different countries?
Well, as I said earlier, it's like mainly seen in the U.S. just because that's 90% of us, but it can really occur in anybody. But I would assume, just since it only said 90% in the U.S., that it mainly occurs here.
Since it only occurs, or since it occurs in 90% of people, is there a way to do people need treatments to get over? Like, do they need to be identified, or can they just get over it themselves?
They can't. The only way you can really get over it is through yourself, because there is no treatment for this virus. They can't prescribe you with an antibiotic since it is a virus. So just by resting and becoming diagnosed with it and knowing the ways to prevent it is your only way of steering clear from the virus.
From the back of the house here. I seem to recall whenever you were diagnosed, he was not able to accurately diagnose you with the blood test because it had been a certain amount of time
Yes.
since. So is there a certain amount of time? Like if we were in an urgent care, as I understand, and they said they weren't sure. And then I took you to your primary care physician, and he said it had been like 24 hours or something.
Well,
so
whenever we went into the urgent care, I was very dehydrated. I hadn't had much to drink or eat that day just because I was so fatigued and hadn't had a lot of fluids in me. So they couldn't perform proper blood tests because of that. Also, not to mention, I have very bad veins, so they couldn't get any kind of vein to distribute blood. And so when they told me that it could have been meningitis, that was just an assumption because I had a stiff neck and I had stiff muscles in me. So then they were like, we'll go to a blood center to get blood drawn. But then we ended up getting a time with my primary care physician, and he said, I actually could think it's mono, but we can't test it because it's been so prolonged already that I had to wait until the end of that month to go back and get tested. So when I went back at the end of the month and they tested for the antibodies that were there, I had all the antibodies present, and that led to me being diagnosed with mono.